Well, Raider Nation, I can admit when I am surprised, and I am surprised. Eddie Paskal here hanging out in the fifth quarter presented by Twitch with our man Jason Fitz. And Fitz, first off, it's good to see you. I know that when I talked to you yesterday, were you in the air when we were exchanging texts?
Yeah, so I was at the Big 12 championship game doing the Dr. Pepper tuition giveaway thing where you have to throw the footballs into the cans and, kid won $100,000 in tuition. By the way, really rooting for the girl that lost. I'll be honest. The kid that won, congratulations to him that won, but he was at Duke and like a legacy at Duke. I talked to the girl that lost and I was like, hey, tell me your story. And she's like, well, I'm enrolled in community college, but I don't have the money for it. And I'm trying to get into aviation school so I can make a better life for me and my 2-year-old daughter that's autistic. And I was like, and she threw she missed one throw in the whole, she was one short of a new record in the warm-up throws the day before. We were all like, even the guy that won was like, yeah, I'm not beating her. And she cracked under the pressure. So, I felt bad for her, but it was a fun experience. And then I got to come home and watch the Raiders just beat up on the Chargers for a little bit. Oh, feels good, Eddie.
It's beautiful, man. It's a beautiful thing. And the Raiders certainly did not wilt under pressure today as they handled business, taking down the aforementioned Chargers 27-20 for their third win in a row. And I said the top Fits, I will admit when I was wrong, when I am surprised. And I think in this case, I'm both. I did not think, candidly, the Raiders had a little 3-game winning streak in them. I did not think they were going to play as complete of a game as they did today. Now, it certainly wasn't perfect, but a really, really good overall game for the Silver and Black. And Fitz, just like that, it seems like things are kind of rounding into form for your 2022 Las Vegas Raiders.
Wasn't, according to some experts, the secondary supposed to be barbecued chicken in this game?
I heard that.
I think the thing that really brought the joy down in my heart, the thing that really got my juices flowing was watching that D-line from the outset play with the level of fire and turbo button. I'm telling you, we talked about it last time, Eddie, and the changes we've seen in the interior portion of the defensive line really feels like it's changed the way that teams are having to game plan against the entire defensive line. And you could see, we talked about the walk-off win a few weeks ago and the collective sigh. The Chandler Jones sack was a moment where you just felt energy come into the entire defensive line, and it never left. That defensive line made Justin Herbert's life miserable for the entire game, and it reminded you of what the equation was supposed to be coming into the year.
And a quick moment, quick moment in the sun, man. Round of applause for Chandler Jones because, let's be honest. I've said it, you've said it. He has taken a lot of grief for the first 10, 11 weeks of this season, and that dude balled out today. We look at his final line right now. Chandler Jones finishes with 3 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, 5 quarterbacks hits, a pass defense, and candidly, he should have had a 4th sack. There was one where he literally jumped over Justin Herbert. So Herbert ducked at the perfect moment, or otherwise we were talking about a 4-sack game for Chandler Jones. And we talk about the defensive line. He really was the catalyst for a lot of things that the big fellas up front wanted to do today. And it wasn't just Chandler. I know Max didn't have a sack today, but Max is active. The big fellas in the middle getting after it. This defensive line is the defensive line we were promised, right? This is what it was supposed to look like. This is how it was supposed to feel going up against one of the biggest, baddest dogs in the AFC West. And credit to Pat Graham for keeping this group grounded, centered, and telling them to keep plugging away. Because today, they really brought their A game. And candidly, that's a big reason why the Raiders won this game.
Not only did the front four create pressure, which we now know, I love this. Every time you watch a TV broadcast, make it a responsible non-alcoholic drink, but take a drink every time you hear about, the key is to get after them with your front four. Of course, that's what everybody wants to do. The problem is there aren't enough good front fours in the NFL to do that. But once that started to happen in this game, then you add into that the well-timed blitz, and all of a sudden you could feel the fear on the Chargers offensive line. And I thought that was palpable throughout the course of this game. It kept Herbert off balance throughout the course of this game. I think there's so much that comes to Graham's ability to figure out when to dial it up. There were a lot of times they brought everybody to the line, and even the broadcasters on TV were saying, well, it's about to be a blitz. And then everybody fell back. So it felt like there was a chess match going, and that chess match was being won by the Raiders defense in the strategery happening before the snap of the football.
I'm glad you brought up the well-timed blitz too, because it really feels like Denzel Perryman has become the embodiment of the well-timed blitz. And like I said, credit to Pat Graham for knowing and feeling kind of that perfect moment for it. But I mean, it is this defense, and to go back to Friday night, I boycotted the Pac-12 championship game, Fitz. I couldn't bring myself.
As an Oregon.
Yes, I couldn't bring myself to go to Allegiant to watch the game. But as I'm watching at home with the wife, especially in that fourth quarter, I kept telling her, I was like, man, this Utah defense is fun to watch. They are running around with their hair on fire. They're bringing DBs. They're bringing safeties. The defensive line is getting sustained pressure. I was like, and it is so much fun to watch. And at one moment during the game today, I leaned over to the person on my left and said, it kind of reminds me of that, where everyone as a collective is just running around doing their thing. Denzel Perryman is a man possessed. Chandler Jones has been reborn in early December, and it was so refreshing. And I think just on a very personal level, the past 3 weeks have got to feel really, really good for this Raiders defense after how they started this season.
Flying to the ball is something that we love to see. But flying to the ball is something that's really difficult to do when you're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, some of the great analysts out there broke down how the Raiders a few weeks ago oversimplified everything. And then they started bringing complex concepts back after that point. It feels like there's a level of comfort happening from the front seven, particularly. I mean, you can talk all day long about the fact that if we were playing this game on Madden, the Madden ratings of our DBs against their wide receivers would not look favorable. It didn't matter in this game, though, because you were masking that weakness by being able to get after people in such an incredible way. I mean, the fact that they were able to blitz that well, they were able to rush the passer that well, they were still able to keep the run in check. I mean, the only fatal flaw I thought that this defense had a couple of times was they were burnt on some screens. And then what do you see late in the game? The one time that the Chargers desperately needed the screen, the Raiders knew it was coming. So, like, the adjustments to the adjustments feel like the defense won in every possible way. We've been hard on this defense all year. It just feels like maybe myself included, let me say this loudly, myself included, maybe a bunch of people underestimated the learning curve on what it was going to take to start to understand some of these concepts offensively and defensively, because this is a Raiders team that not only looks like they're having more fun, they look like they have a better understanding of where they need to be right now, and that's much different than it was 4 weeks ago.
And not to get too meta and philosophical about any of this, Fitz, but you go back to the start of the year, the first game against the Chargers, Raiders fall down early. They're down 17-3 in the second quarter, and we know how that ends. Raiders mount to come back, but just a little bit too late, too little too late. You look at today, Raiders fall down early, 10-0. And then something clicks, and I think they're two similar starts of the game for the Raiders, and we can talk about these slow starts in just a sec. But in one game, the Raiders aren't able to overcome those mistakes. They're not able to kind of right the ship, focus in, and come away with a victory. Today, they do that in a big way. And it wasn't always the prettiest. It wasn't certainly the most glamorous win you'll see. There were a lot of things that need to get better. But same opponent, two different games, two different outputs. One ends up with a win and one ends with a loss. So I think that, like I said, not to get too metaphysical about anything, but you do kind of see the changes to this team. You do kind of see the marked improvement, and that's all. When you and I had this conversation a month ago, when things were not going well for this team, all we talked about is like, hey, we just want to see things get a little bit better week after week after week, and that is exactly what we're seeing.
Think about body language for a second, because I was hard on them a few weeks ago in the loss when I felt like nobody was picking each other up, nobody was talking to each other, there was no communication. Team really felt like they were giving up on each other, and I'd never seen that from this group with these veterans, with these players. I was really surprised by that. I only mention that because I don't know, we talk all the time about identity. I don't know if what's happened since then. But one thing that Josh McDaniels has stressed as a coaching staff is they're not going to get too high. They're not going to get too low. They're just going to keep doing the work. And I don't know what happened since that moment, but that feels like that portion of the identity has seeped in to the culture of this group of guys, because even when they were down 10-0, there wasn't a panic. There wasn't a press. There wasn't a change in the play calling. There wasn't a change in aggressiveness or strategy. There wasn't guys fighting and chirping with each other. Everybody kept bouncing around. Everybody would look good. Like, everybody felt like, hey, This thing isn't starting well. We're going to be just fine. There's a calm to that. And I think that is becoming part. If we separate everything we've seen in the first 5 weeks, 6 weeks of the season to what we're seeing right now, being even keeled seems to be a real part of the leadership of Davante, the leadership of Derek Carr, and the leadership of Josh McDaniels.
And sticking on Derek for a second, we got to talk about Davante's huge game here in just a second, but you talk about it, it kind of seemed like there was a line in the sand somewhere, and I think in a lot of ways you can go back to that Colts game, right? You can look at the very visceral reactions, the emotional reactions we saw from DC at the podium, and everyone felt some kind of way about it, about seeing him kind of, unleash those emotions, be open, be vulnerable. But you know what hasn't happened since that happened, Fitz? The Raiders haven't lost a football game. They've won 3 games in a row since Derek let it all out, since he let it all, everything come out and anything that had been festering in him and he'd been thinking about, since he let that out, the Raiders have really looked like a different team. And I think Derek deserves a ton of credit for that leadership. So does Josh McDaniels for staying the course, staying diligent, really committing to what he said from day one, where he's going to be the same guy, win or lose, and Davante as well. And so I think perhaps a better conversation for us to have at the end of the season, whenever that may be, Fitz. But it really does feel, like we said at the top, that something has changed with your 2022 Raiders, and it's kind of hard to explain what it is, but there is something that's different.
Yeah, and, if you go back to the emotion you just talked about, what hit me was the emotion the next week. When the Raiders got the win, and look, it was you guys that put it up on social, the locker room video, and the way everybody's chanting DC's name and the way everybody's jumping up and down with each other, a love, a camaraderie, a thing. And there was just an it factor to that moment. And it really felt, I'll use the college football analogy because I just came out of the Big 12 championship. I think Georgia as a football program changed forever when they won a national championship because they beat Alabama to do it. And what we saw this year was a different version of Georgia, right? Like that. It was just that yeah, but was off their backs. I felt like early on in the season, the worse things were getting for the Raiders, the tighter they were playing. All of a sudden, they get that one win, and it felt like just a different approach to the way this team is doing business. They get another walk-off win, and it feels like a different approach. And then you think about the number of things in this game, falling behind early. Yes, the opportunity at the end of the half to try and to get a stop. They needed a stop to keep it a 3-point game. They did. Then they're not able to convert the field goal. That's something that could absolutely crush your confidence. The Chargers get the ball first in the second half. How many times this season have we seen these little moments snowball and nothing snowballed all the way down to needing to get a big stop at the end? They got all of that done. It feels like for the first time, positivity has snowballed with this team, and it's really changing the way everything feels all the way to the line of scrimmage, to the control, the lack of penalties, the discipline. It just feels like a focused team that's having fun.
Yeah, and I think that, like you said, it feels like a group that's having fun. I think it's a lot easier to have fun when, and we've heard from Josh McDaniels say this, it's a lot easier to have fun when your captains are kind of staying even keel, when they're understanding the process, when you don't have anyone hanging their heads. I mean, we talk about the biggest dogs, the biggest, baddest dogs on this Raiders team, and what have they done? They've been the catalyst. They've been the ones carrying this team. Derek Carr, another big game. Josh Jacobs goes 26 for 144 with another touchdown today, a dude who is fully in the matrix. Davante Adams, take a deep breath, Fitz, goes 8 for 177 and 2 touchdowns. 8 for 177 and 2 touchdowns.
Let me say this, and maybe I'm screaming this to the people I work with at ESPN every day. The next time somebody says, do you think Davante regrets not being where he was before? Just kick him in the no-no places. Like to me, at some point, I said this to one of my ESPN coworkers. We are not even acknowledging the fact that Davante's having a huge year. Mm-hmm. Like he's not having a good year. He's having a huge year. And if the concept is he wants to play somewhere with his good buddy and catch a bunch of footballs and try and make a difference, all of those things are being accomplished. Are they winning games? No, but let's not turn around. It's a fair conversation to have about some of the way Aaron Rodgers has played without Davante Adams. Davante Adams is not having a dip without Aaron Rodgers. I just got to say that loudly for every conversation about the two of them not being together anymore.
Davante's yardage the past 5 games, Fitz. 177 tonight. So 177, 74, 141, 126, 146. That'll do. That'll work.
I mean, and the whole field knows he's getting the ball.
That's crazy too. That's a fantastic point, Fitz.
Like there is no we Eddie and I were talking about this today. Like you got you got Devontae, you got Mac Hollins, right? At this point, reminder loudly 62 snaps. That's how many snaps Hunter Renfrow, Darren Waller, and Devontae Adams have been on the field together this year. 62. That number is not likely to change. So we're at 62, right? So Devontae has had to do all of the heavy lifting, and the entire world with one of the best safeties, the NFL Defensive Player of the Month from the AFC, right? The Defensive Player of the Month was Derwin James. What impact did he have on this game, right?
Yeah.
Like Devontae went out there and he ate against that Chargers secondary like it was still Thanksgiving, man. Like, and we all know what's coming. Like, good Lord, that ability to cook. What was it? Tim Brown, Jerry Rice? Is that the last time we've seen this sort of dominance from Raiders fandom?
Well, we talk about that sustained success, Fitz, right? So here's a stat from our friends at NFL Research. Devontae Adams now has 4 games with 100-plus receiving yards and 2 touchdowns in 2022. So he's done that 4 times as we record this on December 4th. That is the most such games in Raiders history.
I mean, like... And the thing of it is, he's not 37, right? Like, that's the other part of it. Like, this is Devontae and Devontae's prime. He's got years left.
You want one more Devontae stat for you? One more nugget to ruminate on? This marks the 20th career game for Devontae Adams with 2 receiving touchdowns. He becomes the 6th player in the Super Bowl era with 20 such games within his first 9 seasons. Part 2, Adams is also only the third player ever with 100-plus receiving yards in each of his first 5 division games. So we talked about how good the AFC West was going to be. And look, I think maybe some of us, myself included, may have overestimated how good the AFC West was, but all the same, important games. That's where you make your money, in those division games. And Devontae has gone 100-plus in his first 5. That will do, sir.
I think these are the moments that, look, we're never going to lie about the hole that's been dug in the way this season started, and the amount of digging out that would be historic. So I'm not going to sit here and even speculate down that path. But one thing you and I have talked a lot about is, what do we want out of this season? I want to see growth. I want to see understanding. I want to see the offense become more second nature to everybody. What did we see today? We saw Derek Carr that was really under control behind an offensive line that, by the way, has been playing better and better and better, and an offensive line that is out there creating. There were 3 different runs today that I can remember off the top of my head where Josh Jacobs stopped and had 2 different lanes that were wide open for him, and he got to play like the old Choose Your Own Adventure. Did you ever read those books when you were a kid?
Oh, yeah.
Like, if you want to go left down the hall, turn to page 72. Like, that's what, like, Josh was turned into page 72, went left. Like, the offensive line is playing better and better. And even when the Chargers stacked everything to try and figure out a way to stop the run, all of a sudden Devontae gets involved, and then they have to change everything. I think the coaching's gotten better. The play calling's gotten better. The quarterback understanding's gotten better. Devontae's comfortable. Josh is playing lights out like we keep talking about. The offensive line's getting better. The defensive line shows up today. Like, these are the moments you're like, man, a month ago I was looking at it saying, my God, where are the building blocks? Yeah. And now you're looking at it saying, hey, everybody's starting to get that thing together.
And I'm glad you brought up the offensive line, Fitz, because during his presser tonight, Coach McDaniel said, and he conferred with our guy Will Kiss, so Will Kiss got a little off-screen time, but he goes, one thing I'm really proud of is that today we had no sacks on Derek and no negative yards. No negative runs. Apologies. No negative runs. And so, I mean, if you're doing that, and you have an offense that has Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams balling out, doing their thing, that is a recipe for success. And I'm curious for your take on this. And you and I were kind of talking about this a little bit before we started rolling. But per our friend Rachel Gossin at Raiders.com, Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs combined for a total of 321 of the Raiders' 404 yards of offense today. Now, there's 2 ways to take this. So when you hear that, Fitz, where do you go?
I think great coaches find ways to get great players to football. And when you've got 2 guys right now that are arguably, I'm not like, let's say it this way. Devontae's the top 3 wide receiver in the NFL, right? Top 3, top 4. I don't think anybody's going to argue with that. Josh Jacobs is having a top 3 season at running back in the NFL. You feed your hot hand. I always use this example. I was at the game, Rich Gannon against the Steelers all the way back. I think it might've been 2008, first game of the year, right? Early September. I'm at the game in Pittsburgh. And I remember that game, Rich Gannon came out and threw the ball like the first 30 plays, whatever it was. Just kept throwing the ball and throwing the ball. Set a new record at the time. Kept throwing the ball and throwing the ball. Why did he keep doing that afterwards? And the Raiders killed the Steelers. And afterwards, he's like, we kept doing it because they couldn't stop it. So if you know you got somebody they can't stop, then you just keep feeding them. And you make sure that that person is involved in the game plan. And you go out there and you win football games that way. Like there's a difference right now when Zamir White, I hope he gets his shot at some point. But Zamir White, like when he's running the football, ain't looking like Josh, right? Like, and there's no way, as much as I like the season Mac Hollins is having right now, been a real gem for the Raiders offense. He's not Devontae. Like you get the ball to your two guys.
Yeah, you're right. And I see it. I 100% understand where you're coming from. I get that. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I've been the biggest proponent, and Al knows this, of let Josh run, hand him the ball, and let him go to work. I get that. So I'm going to sound a little bit hypocritical here in a sec, but when I see that number, that Josh and Devontae combined for 321 out of those 404, part of me is a little nervous hearing that, though, because I ask myself, okay, if Josh needs a breather, if Devontae gets the wind knocked out of him, where does that production come from? And we look at the numbers today, and obviously Josh, once again, no shocker here, the bell cow, 26 carries. Zamir White had 2, and Amir had 1. No one is giving him a breather. In terms of the wide receiving core, and I know that the tight end situation was kind of in flux today, but Devontae Adams has 12 targets, 8 receptions. Mac Hollins has 9 targets, 5 receptions. And that's it. They are the only wide receivers that caught passes today. So, yes, it worked. Yes, it's fantastic. But part of me wonders a little bit, Fitz, how sustainable is that for the next 5-6 weeks, whatever it is?
I would love to see Foster Moreau have a big breakout moment. I would. Like he had a couple of nice catches, couple of nice opportunities. They tried to get him the ball. I would love to see. I would feel more comfortable in this offense if I had one more guy that you could rely on, and unfortunately injury has taken so much of that away right now. But I think Foster's the person that we're all, because I think there's a lot of us and a lot of people around the NFL that believe that Foster is fully capable of becoming a starting tight end in the league, not just because of his blocking ability, but he can catch passes. So I would love to see him get an opportunity to shine more. I think that could be a big addition to this offense. And to your point, one thing, I know plenty of time to look ahead to Thursday, but I do have to stress that we're looking ahead to Thursday.
Yes.
And while it's a decimated Rams team, your lead back just took 26 carries. So now do the simple math. He's going to sit in an ice tub tomorrow for a game off. Tuesday, they're going to do a little walkthrough while I'm sure he continues to get treatment on the calf issue we all know is a big deal. Wednesday, you have a walkthrough, and that's about the best you can do.
And that's a travel day too, Fitz. That's a travel day too for the Raiders.
Right. So then you got to hope that body is ready to go. And I think every single person watching the game was holding our collective breath late. I think it was midway through the second quarter. Josh came up. You could see him wincing. Like you could see the wince and you could see the limp. And it was like, oh, nope, he's going to need a breather. He still took another 20 carries after that, right? So I think we'll get a real indication on Thursday night.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the Thursday thing, because I think that's the next very real hurdle for this team. And Coach talked about it this evening. And he says, look, the beauty of the Thursday night game is twofold. One, it's not a surprise. Everyone knows it's on the schedule. It's not gonna sneak up on you. He goes, but two, both teams are in the exact same position. It's a very equal playing field for both teams. And now the Raiders obviously have to get on a plane and take a flight to Los Angeles, albeit a very short flight. But still, you're traveling, you're getting a hotel, you're out of your routine a little bit. But we're going to learn a lot about this Raiders team come Thursday. And I'm curious here, Fitz, where also I was going back and looking at my notes and looking at some of the things you and I have discussed over the past couple of weeks. So this is, because of some scheduling funkiness, this is your third appearance in a row with us. Also coincides, Fitz, with 3 Raiders wins. I'm just saying.
Let's just keep it going.
I'm just saying.
Let's just keep it going.
I'm just saying.
I mean,
but okay, so after that though, but you look back to that Colts game, and it does kind of feel like that was the line in the sand for 2022 for the Las Vegas Raiders. What has been different? I mean, I understand there's been more of a commitment to that formula of what works on offense, but when you take a look at the past 21 days for this Raiders team, I mean, it really does feel like night and day compared to what we saw for the first part of 2022. What sticks out to you?
Execution. I'm going to say this all day. Like, I think some of these concepts and something I've talked to Orlovsky a lot about at ESPN is quarterback concepts and offensive concepts. And, one of the things that's really jarring, I was going over this with AJ McCarron today, is
friend of the program,
college football stuff, friend of the program. AJ was talking about how in some offenses, when you step up to the line, the minute you step up to the line, each player on that line, each skill set player, including the quarterback, may have upwards of 8 or 9 adjustments they make depending on where one person is lined up. I think we forget that sometimes. So you get to that line and you're trying to figure out who's going where, when, why, and how. Man, it's a lot more than just Madden where you're sitting there saying, well, I'm going to run right. Like even some of the run fits that are required from the offensive line take a lot. What did we see today? We saw a lot of bunched formations on offense where you got a little bit of motion, which is telling them who's going where, and you're putting an extra blocker in on one edge and hoping you can get Josh a clean lane to get behind. When you start thinking about all of the intricacies of that, I think it takes time. And I don't know what the wake-up call is or was after the Colts loss, but it really does feel like the team has come out better disciplined. Like down and distance is a huge deal. You cannot, when you are a run-first team and you only have one real threat as a wide receiver, you can't come out in 1st and 25. You can't put yourself behind the 8 ball. So they've played much smarter, and it just feels like something clicked and everybody sort of woke up in that process. So the other thing I'll credit quickly is I think the roster maneuvers made in the interior of the defensive line have been a huge, like not just an addition. They have been an eye-opening, jarring, huge addition, and a defensive line that plays so much with energy, offensive line that is taken some time to gel together. I think the interior of these lines, it's been a big difference.
Can you not tell me that Jerry Tillery had a blast out there tonight? I mean, and listen,
he's trying to get himself paid. Like that's a man trying to earn a spot somewhere. He played like it.
Yeah, he played incredible. I think he's been kind of like we talk about that infusion into the interior of that Raiders defensive line. I mean, he has been outstanding. I mean, really, all the big fellows in the middle I think have been really, really good the past month. But I think for me, when I look back at the past 3 wins and kind of understanding like, okay, what was the thing that I don't want to say was missing for that first part of the year, but what's kind of the most marked improvement that I've seen? And for me, it's not, yes, I know the execution has been better and Josh is playing out of his mind and it helps that Max is playing at a defensive player of the year type level. But for me, it's really just been that energy, that positive energy. And you talked earlier about, during that Colts game where guys aren't helping each other up off the turf, right? There's a hanging of the head. There's maybe not that oomph that you need. The past 3 weeks, that is what this team has run off of. That defense is playing a possessed type of football. The offense is clicking. There is no one out there that's having more fun than Josh Jacobs right now for good reason. And to me, it just feels like this team has something. They have a bug, the best possible bug that you could have, and it's just infectious right now. They're having fun. They're playing with energy. They're bringing the juice. And I know that it's not something that we can really put down on the stat sheet, but to me, when I watch this team and I rewatch the games, that to me, Fitz, is the biggest difference from the past 3 weeks compared to what we saw the first part of 2022.
I also want to shout out yet again. I feel like this is the 3rd week in a row, maybe. But Perryman is just, you want to talk about the differences. Somebody that played at a Pro Bowl level last year that felt like maybe he wasn't a great fit in this defense. It's like everything else. It's like it just took it a second to get locked in. Mm-hmm. And I think it's wild what a difference he has made coming up the gut and up the middle. Like we forget about the fact that, we didn't have him for several games, that Diablo was supposed to be a big part of this defense in the linebacker position as well. We got a bunch of bodies in there that are still learning how to play together. Like we forget that Perryman has been an absolute delight the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, he really has. And like I said, he is the king now of the well-timed blitz. We got to trademark that, Fitz. We got to do like the Patrick Graham trademark, well-timed blitz. So it has been it has been so much fun to watch this team. And you just forget how much fun it is when things are going your way. I mean, we look at the beginning of this year and it felt like every football was not bouncing the way for the Raiders, and now the bounces are coming our way, and it is so much fun. And we talked about the very real hole that the Raiders dug themselves in the first part of the season, and that ain't going anywhere. That's reality. That is the world we are existing in, but that does not mean that we cannot celebrate each of these wins, that we cannot relish the fact that the Silver and Black are in a 3-game winning streak and are now going to fly to Los Angeles to take on a Los Angeles Rams team quarterbacked by question mark Fitz? Who do we got?
Yeah, I don't even know who's in the quarterback position. We stopped paying attention to that, right? Like, and the Rams actually had a juggernaut of a game today against the Seahawks. So, but I think that's also a statement to the fact that the Seahawks are, maybe not as good as everybody wants them to be at some point. But yeah, the Rams without a ton of players at this point. Also, Aaron Donald. No, Aaron Donald is going to change the way this entire defensive front plays. So we'll see how that
I'm
goes.
glad you bring up Aaron Donald. Just on our way out, Fitz, we talk about Aaron Donald, a beast in really all aspects of a defensive game plan, but a man who's really made his money, clogging things up in the middle, getting after the quarterback, just being an overall menace, right? Here's a great stat that just came through, according to our friends at Next Gen Stats. So on Josh's touchdown run, his 8th touchdown of the year, now he only has 8 touchdowns. He has 8 touchdowns running between the tackles, trailing only Jamal Williams, who has 9. But on inside runs in particular, Fitz, this year, Josh Jacobs has 750 yards, 204 more than the next closest player, 593 yards after first contact, 167 yards more than the next closest player. And so that's it. But I mean, hey, if you're running inside and Aaron Donald's not there, well, if you're Josh Jacobs, it's got to be exciting. Got to be something that you're looking forward to on Thursday.
And this is one of those moments, too, like when people start talking about rookie classes and the rookies that have made an impact, there's one in that interior of that offensive line. I mean, Parham is at we forget that we've got a rookie out of Memphis starting in the offensive line in the middle of it all, handling all. And the Chargers defense is no joke. Like, that's the other, this isn't a defense full of scrubs. By the way, I looked it up. Wolford is the quarterback.
Excellent.
Rams. 14 to 26 for $178 with 2 picks today. So, to take with that.
I will say this:
Thursday night's tough for everybody.
Thursday night is tough, and I think you and I have both seen time and time again. You will look like a fool, an absolute fool, if you look past anyone in the National Football League.
Well, and Sean McVay is still one of the best of the best.
He's a guru
when it comes to, So I obviously, especially right now, I think there's a level of caution and urgency to every single week of the season remaining for the Raiders. There is no doubt about that. But I cannot stress this enough, man. I said it a couple of minutes ago, but a month ago it was, my God, how do you fix all of this? Now you're looking around and saying, wait. Maybe the little engine that could is starting to get a little rhythm here, and guys are figuring it out. And what the best case scenario for this Raiders team, above and beyond anything else, is that guys on this roster figure it out so that you get to see the best of the best from the players that are already in the organization, and you can start to see how good the future can be.
And I think just, not even looking ahead to next season, but looking ahead a little bit, I think it's important that you finish this season off, however it ends, with some positivity, right? To understand, hey, there are building blocks here for us to keep stacking. There are bricks here. The cupboard is not bare. There is a method to the proverbial madness. So look, yes, I think all of us are excited about this moment that we're living in, and every Raider fan out there should be excited. After the first part of the season, you get up, you have fun, you call your buddies, you talk your trash tomorrow. The Raiders have won 3 in a row. Now, the other side of that, Fitz, is the world of reality that we talked about, and we don't need to get too ahead of ourselves. But I think as we go through this next month of the football season, let's see progress from the rookies, from the veterans. Let's see who's going to be a part of this thing in 2023 and beyond. Whatever the record is going to say when the Raiders wrap this thing up on, I think, whatever it is, January 8th, January 9th, whatever it may be. But you have a chance to really kind of see who the backbone of this team is going to be, and it's going to be an exciting thing to watch over the stretch here, or down the stretch, I should say.
If the Raiders are able to continue growing the way they're growing right now, think about how much different we will all feel, from Mark Davis all the way down to whatever person is listening to this that has their 2-year-old in a Raiders onesie right now. Every single person involved in any level of fandom of this organization is going to feel a heck of a lot better about this team if things continue to progress, because it tells you, you know what? We're going the right direction. I'm the first to admit I thought the Raiders would start hotter. I thought that we would see what we're seeing now out of the gate, but that doesn't change the fact that we are now seeing what we're seeing. And it looks like a smart football team that understands what they're trying to accomplish with direction and discipline, that's out there playing physical on both sides of the ball with a level of explosive energy that is fun to watch. That's what we thought we'd get week 1. And we may not have gotten it then, But man, it's a delight to watch now.
And I will say this, it is a team that is getting better. It feels like we are seeing tangible improvement. And perhaps most importantly, Fitz, it is a team that has an identity. It is a team that knows who they are, what they are good at. And we have seen now the recipe for success, and it's a pretty darn good recipe. Fitz, are we going to see you on Thursday night? I'm looking at the schedule. I think you're coming back. Is that so?
Yeah, I'm here Thursday night. Let's go.
I love it. I'm just going to say this. This will be 4 in a row for Fitz. Can the Raiders make it 4 in a row? We'll have to wait and find out. Make sure you tune into the fifth quarter presented by Twitch, and hopefully we got a little magic. So, for Eddie Paskal, my man Jason Fitz, Al, who's been dominating the board, and everyone else at Silver and Black Productions, thank you for hanging out with us. And a friendly reminder, programming note, we play on Thursday night this week. So don't wait until Sunday. Make sure you finish your work early, you get home, you get to your local watering hole, because Thursday night is going to be electric. And Fitz and I will be back here in the fifth quarter, and we cannot wait. So stay safe, stay healthy, my friends, and we'll see you in a few days.